extra drama for Super Thriller number 2, On the Run. Hi, everybody. It's your host, Marissa Flaxbart, and I'm here with Nick Riley. And that felt kind of funny to say it's extra drama for a super thriller, because I've never done extra drama for one of these big fat ones, these super specials. They're not called super specials. That's what they're called in Babysitter's Club, and I always want to say super special. But, you know, the fat books, the books that are outside of the normal thing. So thanks for trying something new with me, Nick.
It's just because there's so much drama in this one.
There really is. I mean, their main episode was very long, and now we have even more to say. And I think some of it is going to be very silly, and some of it maybe will be more substantive. But you said that you had some notes that you wanted to discuss briefly.
Well, this is probably the silly stuff to start with, but I feel like it would not be my duty to be a guest on this podcast if I did not mention how strange the scene is earlier in the book, where Mr. Wakefield brought take-home Mexican food. Uh-huh. Do you remember the scene?
Yeah.
It struck me as very strange because all the Wakefields are there, including Stephen and Adam, who we discussed in the main episode is having a very eventful few weeks, months.
Oh, yeah. Are you going to talk about Mrs. Wakefield?
I am.
All right.
Do you want to tee that up?
Yeah. I mean, should I just read it?
Sure, go for it.
All right. This is the beginning of chapter 2 also, so it really does kind of come out blazing. It was a mild summer evening, and everyone was enjoying eating outside. Mrs. Wakefield, who had changed out of her navy dress into a pair of comfortable pants. I didn't notice that before.
Yes.
Okay, good for you, Alice. She's got her comfy pants on. Sorry, it's so funny to me. I don't know why. Thinking about how this book thought it was important to tell us that she was dressed nicer before, but now she's wearing
every detail about
pants.
her is so strange in this book.
All right, we haven't even gotten there yet, gladiators. All right. Mrs. Wakefield, who had changed out of her navy dress into a pair of comfortable pants, helped herself to a second taco. I really shouldn't, she chided herself, but this food is so good. Stephen laughed. Mom, you can't weigh an ounce more than the twins do. You could pass for a model. I agree with that, Adam seconded. Mrs. Wakefield blushed. It was true that she looked young, with her sleek blonde page boy and slender figure. In her profession as an interior designer, it helped to look well put together. And, I mean, then it goes into this. Darcy says that there's a fad diet that makes you lose 20 pounds in a month, and all you do is eat grapefruit and rice. And the conversation turns to Darcy from there, but... Yeah, so what part of that stood out to you, Nick? Any particular part or parts?
It was, all of it. But it was first off, so strange to me that Stephen is talking about his mother like that.
Yeah.
And Adam as well, like, he's almost hitting on her. But then I don't understand the one taco rule going on here.
Well, one taco is not a dinner, okay? I don't care how skinny you are. You eat 2 tacos at least. These are Californians we're talking about. Like, how big are these tacos? This is not a one taco is a child's dinner.
Yeah, and then it was strange to me that you have this weird rumination of Mrs. Wakefield talking about how this is good for her industry, her career.
It has nothing to do with anything that happens in the book ever.
It has nothing to do with what's going on in the book. And the only other time that we're going to really see her is when she's making a cake. Or no, she's also making hamburgers at a third scene. But she's making a cake and eating the batter and is too interested in that to be listening to Jessica, who's concerned about her sister's well-being.
Yeah.
But... in the scene, she then, when Elizabeth brings up how she doesn't like Darcy, she doesn't like her attitude and everything she's doing, Mrs. Wakefield kind of snaps at her and says it's not okay to judge someone's, like, intellect, but yet we just got through this whole thing where she seems to be okay with them judging her physical appearance.
Right.
Which seems like such a strange message to me.
I mean, I don't even know where to start. Like, gladiators, I know we've been talking a lot about this haircut, but if you don't know what a page boy haircut looks like, please do Google it. And then picture that every time we talk about Alice Wakefield, a blonde page boy. Secondly, I'm not even sure if the book knows what it's doing with this taco thing, because I read something like this and it makes me frustrated. Like, eat a second taco. Like, don't, like, I feel like I grew up with this, like, you always, every single bite of food you eat has to have this emotional, like, value system attached to it. It's just makes you crazy. So it was triggering for me, let's just say. But then, it instantly laughs. It's the fact that she's doing it at all. She's not saying, I want another taco, but I'm not going to have one because I shouldn't. She is taking a taco and saying, I'm going to do it even though I shouldn't. And she's
already
eating
guilty.
it. So it's like, but it's like, is she representing some kind of carefree attitude? Like, we learned recently, or I don't think I even said this in the episode, you guys, but in a recent book, it described that Jessica and her friends went to the Dairy Burger almost every day after school. And Amy, like, makes appointments to go for drinking milkshakes and stuff. Like, these teenagers are all eating a lot of unhealthy food. So, and not
they go
thinking
for a
much
quick
about it.
milkshake in this one.
Yeah, oh, that's in this one. Okay, the quick milkshake. That was Amy's.
I thought that was such a strange phrase.
Quick milkshake. Yeah. Well, you know what? We should go for a quick milkshake.
Let me just down this milkshake.
I also was just thinking about the logistics of it, like the logistics of the tacos. Like, when you order a pizza, you just think, how many pizzas do we need? And people will eat what they want. But there's not really another kind of takeout that works that way. I mean, maybe a bucket of chicken, but it's like, if I'm going to order food for a household of what is it now, like 6 people, I think I'm going to take specific orders, unless it's like dining family style. So how many, like, is she eating someone else's taco, or do they just get extra tacos? I mean, it's not like it's impossible for people to order food this way. It just, thinking about it, I'm like, that's not what would happen if I were ordering the food.
The book also introduces it as that Mr. Wakefield brought home takeout Mexican food, as if he would have brought home any other kind of Mexican food.
It's redundant, you're saying, because he could have just said he brought home Mexican food.
Yeah, the whole thing. And then when Stephen is saying the thing about how she looks basically almost like her daughters.
Well, what he says specifically is that she can't weigh an ounce more than her daughters.
Yeah, sorry, even creepier than I thought.
Yeah.
I was just like, ooh, is he hitting on her too?
I know, that's classic Wakefield family behavior for the children and the parents and the children with each other to have just a strange way of reflecting their appreciation of each other's physique.
This is almost the only interaction you get of them, the whole book.
Yeah.
Like the whole family
Adam
together.
Maitland, like, this is like his only line in the book. I agree with that. You do look like you don't weigh an ounce more than your twin daughters. Either one of them individually, Mrs. Wakefield.
I know I mentioned it before, but it just was so strange to me that basically the 3 times we see her, she's eating a taco, she's making cake batter and eating it, and then she's making hamburger patties.
At the barbecue, yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I love that Alice and the Wakefield family enjoy a good meal. I just wish that they would cut each other some slack about how much they weigh from time to time.
The other piece that I wanted to bring up, and this is real small, but did you notice that every time they're describing Eric's clothes, he always has one faded piece of clothing, whether it be his shirt or his jeans?
I didn't really notice the description of Eric's clothes at all. Maybe I was just reading...
I think it only occurs twice, but each time he has something that's faded on him.
Wow.
It's either a faded cotton shirt or faded jeans.
So, what do you think that's about? Like, are they trying to...
I don't know.
Make us think he is a murderer because his clothes aren't new?
I was almost thinking, like, they were trying to show some sort of difference between him and the Californians that he's now living amongst. But everyone else is described as wearing cotton shirts. So that's
just how they think of Ohioans. We're talking about Ohioans' wardrobes. There's a moment where Darcy puts on a green knit dress. Let's see, did I mark that?
Yes.
And she asks Jessica if she looks too voluptuous in it.
Yeah.
And Jessica,
it was so strange because she's trying to impress the new intern.
Well, here it is. I did mark it. How do I look? Darcy asked anxiously, pivoting to show Jessica the green knit dress she had bought on the way home from work the night before. Jessica studied her critically. You look great. I like that dress a lot, she said. You're sure I don't look a little, voluptuous? Darcy worried. She did have a pretty curvy figure, that Jessica honestly had to admit she thought the redhead looked sensational. So I don't know what that's all about.
But considering that they're all teenagers, it feels like the book has weird language. I don't know if this is just an 80s thing or whatever, but even when the two twins are introduced on page 2, it mentions that they basically would be physically described as perfectly proportioned.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I was like, ooh,
yeah.
I don't like that.
It's definitely kind of weird. I mean, the more you think about it, the more it starts to feel a little bit like eugenicist style, like eugenicsy, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, with all the blonde-haired people of like 6 feet.
This is the perfect human.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And that's why it was even creepy, like when they're describing the men in the story. Like everyone has, I feel like, curly hair in it. And they all have brown hair, which seems strange, but...
Well, it's important that Chris Wyeth has curly brown hair because a composite sketch of him has to look kind of roughly like Eric Hankman.
Yes, true. There was no other way to do that one.
That's plenty to fill in extra drama.
Sorry,
but
I guess I went on a rant there, but it's so strange to me.
When I saw that sentence, or those paragraphs, I was like, oh God. But it was so early in the book that I was like, Marissa, you can't mark everything. Because that's something that happens to me sometimes, is that I realize I have flagged like every other page in this book. And I have earmarked a lot of pages of this book. But it's like, you can't read the whole thing, Marissa. You can't. So I didn't mark it. But I'm glad that you did and that we've gotten a chance to talk about it.
Well, I was trying to think of it like if you were brand new to this and you were just reading this for the first time and had no recollection, like this is your introduction to them.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's so weird. Mm-hmm. What is it even trying to say? I think that what made this so strange to me is that the whole book, like the theme that we have talked about before, though, is about, like, are people good-natured as like a default, or are they all kind of like out for themselves? And the characters in this book are struggling with that. And it's the crux of whether it's like the DeLuca case or how the Ryans feel towards like where they're going to live. And then you have this kind of like superficial thing at the beginning just about how you evaluate people. And I thought it was such a strange kind of dichotomy in how the book approaches this.
Well, you're right, because what's happening is that as the book unfolds, it goes from being, I believe that there are good citizens in the world, I believe that people are inherently good, or I don't, to Sweet Valley is the representation of good human beings. And this is the place where people are good and care for their neighbors in a way that, I don't know what it was like back in Ohio, right? Like Ohio, the Midwest, famous for having bad neighbors. Like what?
They're like, LeBron left for a reason.
That was good. I mean, not a current reference, but a really apt sports one. And
every once in a while I can bust one out.
That's what it all boils down to, being some kind of a statement about whether Sweet Valley is different from the rest of the world. And that also doesn't quite jibe with the series as a whole. Like, do we think about Sweet Valley, California as a town where the people are like above average citizens? Like, certainly not the teenagers at the high school.
Right.
I mean, they do like a lot of can drives and stuff. Like, they really care about their school, but they don't always behave with the best citizenship toward one another.
Yeah, I would not picture this as the most progressive place in the United States.
Right. And certainly not like the model citizen camp. I don't know. Right. Like, just like look back at some of the like off the top of my head, like we've got kidnappings, we've got like, okay, how about the time that Elizabeth did a good thing? She was volunteering as an orderly at the hospital, but then the orderly at the hospital did kidnap her. And then more recently, there was a teenager who was involved with some local gangsters in some underground betting on high school soccer games. So that was all happening within Sweet Valley. There's the whole thing where like a young woman comes to town and accuses the English teacher of having made moves on her. Now, of course, she was a New Yorker. She wasn't from Sweet Valley, but these are just the things that come to mind, you know?
Well, even in this book, the guy in the gray suit I think, is the one who says that members of the criminal underworld live there. So it's like, wait a minute, there's these people in your neighborhood, you don't even know about them. So that kind of undercuts your whole theory about the model citizen Sweet Valley theory.
It's different arguments too, because I mean, I actually do really ascribe to the idea of a basic human decency, and I think that that's something that can be appealed to in pretty much everybody. I do kind of feel like, people work together to try as much as possible to make good win out, even though there is evil in the world. You guys know I'm in Elizabeth. I agree with Elizabeth on this for the most part. But the argument that the Ryans are making at the end of the book isn't everybody is bad and don't trust anybody. It is, we can't trust everybody. Even if there are good people in the world, there's going to be somebody that we can't trust, and we don't know who that person is. I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen Raya and the Last Dragon, like similar vibes, message-wise to this book, surprisingly enough, to that movie.
Yeah, the book actually has kind of a strange sequence where after kind of the main conflict is resolved, the Dr. Ryan is thanking all the neighbors for intervening and saying, like, you've taught me that, like, people can be good and, like, I should trust people. And then it immediately switches to, but we're still moving because we might not be able to trust, like, this specific group, but we believe generally that people will do the right thing. And we're still resigned to moving every 6 months. And I was like, oh, wow, here's some whiplash.
Yeah, well, I can read that because it is definitely a real memorable statement from Dr. Ryan on this. Remember that Dr. Ryan has already done this really good, he's proven himself to be a good citizen because he's the one who came forward. But, it's been really hard on him to see what the aftermath of coming forward against Frank DeLuca has been. So he says, one of the hardest things about the life we're forced to lead now is that we can't really belong to any community for long. We're going to have to keep moving, keep changing our appearance and our names. But you've reminded me tonight that we're all members of one big community, whatever we look like and whatever we call ourselves. We're all human beings, and as long as we believe in right and wrong, we're all fighting the same fight. It was a stirring sentiment, a stirring speech from Dr. Ryan, although it did start with, we're never going to stop running.
Yeah, right. That's where I was like, oh, wait, I think we missed the message here. As long as you belong to a community of unusually handsome people, you'll be okay.
That's the true message of Sweet Valley High.
They take care of their own.
You got it in one. It only took one book to catch on. Well, Nick, thank you so much again for doing this with me. And Gladiators, thank you so much for listening. I hope you'll tell a friend about Sweet Valley Diaries. And I hope you will follow Sweet Valley Diaries on Instagram at Sweet Valley Diaries or on Twitter at Sweet Valley. And you can send me an email to sweetvalleydiaries@me.com if you have something that you would like to say in email format. And yeah, thanks again. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Did you have any parting words that I'm depriving you of?
Oh, no. I don't know if I do. Did we talk about glowering already?
Only in the intro.
Will it make... Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's the mystery that people have to puzzle out.
What all this talk about glowering? I think they'll be able to figure it out.
And that's a great question. I have that same question.